defense ministry. In fact, one analyst we were speaking to earlier today called it the crown jewel of Turkey's defense industry. So a strike on this feels very much like a strike on the very heart of Turkey's government and its armed troops. The second thing to notice here is the timing of this attack. Just yesterday, an ally of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan appeared to extend an olive branch to the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party. That could have potentially opened the door to negotiations that would resolve a decades-long conflict that has claimed many lives. So the fact that a terror attack happens just 24 hours after this gesture is absolutely raising questions. We also have to remember that yes, Turkey is no stranger to terror attacks, but the country hasn't seen anything like this for years. So absolutely, this is sending fears across the country. It is sending shockwaves across the country. Turkey's defense minister has been indicating or pointing the finger at the PKK, although not specifying that they are behind this attack. An investigation is already underway, but I do want to read you the words of President Erdogan, who called the attack, said the attack targeted the survival of our country and the peace of our nation.
Certainly a story that will continue to develop. Selma, really appreciate the update and all of those important notes, as you noted. Selma, thank you. Here in the United States, the U.S. presidential campaign appears to be taking on a decidedly darker tone in the closing.
Y'all have heard me say that this is going on all over, worldwide. It really is. It's not just in one or two or three different spots. There is flare-ups, there is skirmishes happening right now everywhere pertaining to evil, demonic, wicked people, terrorists that are attacking the good people.
In the closing days of the race, some stunning accusations about Donald Trump today from his former chief of staff.
Now, I want you to listen to this because this could be crucial to my viewers. Because I've told you all along, I'm not going to tell you what to do or what not to do whenever it comes to this political election. As a matter of fact, I'd rather completely be totally out of it. But because of it being so crucial and everything that's going on and has went on, I feel like that it is vital for me to at least put in somewhat of an input of what is happening in regards to the elections. When God spoke to my heart going on 4 years ago pertaining to the election then, that Donald Trump had lost that election, verifiably, he has lost the election. He has kicked up more sand and done more arguing and complaining, and I've never seen a president that had president qualities quite like this. There's some things that he does say that are good, but there's a lot of things that he says that are bad. I want you to listen to this and take this upon yourself in how you judge these matters, because we're less than like 13 days away or 2 weeks away from this election, and you're going to have to make up your mind pretty quick, those that are debating one way or the other towards where they're going to go with this whenever it comes to actually voting and putting in your 2 cents. Please listen.
Retired 4-star General John Kelly telling the New York Times the former president, quote, fits the general definition of a fascist. Kelly joins a growing list of former aides sounding the alarm about a second Trump presidency.
Certainly, the former president is in the far right area. He's certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure. I think this issue of using the military to go after American citizens is one of those things I think is a very, very bad thing. Even to say it for political purposes to get elected, I think it's a very, very bad thing, let alone actually doing it. He's certainly the only president that has all but rejected what America is all about and what makes America America in terms of our Constitution.
Democrats are seizing not just on those comments, but on new claims made in The Atlantic that Trump told aides he needed the kind of generals like Hitler had. The Trump campaign is denying that he made the remark. Just last hour, Kamala Harris addressing the accusations against the former president from his former chief of staff.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired four-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally. One that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear.
She's taking everything out of context here. First of all, whenever he talks about going after his opponents, he's talking about those that has the power that have demonstrated their unloyalty to Donald Trump. And I'm pretty sure he probably used Hitler. I would have personally used a king, going back into the old Bible of loyalty. He brought up Hitler, of the loyalty of those soldiers, those troops, because they was loyal to that particular person in that particular time. I think it was bad wording, number one. Number two, we're just going off of another individual's word. We don't have proof. I don't know where the conversation come from with him being on the telephone. If it was a telephone address with Donald Trump and him both talking at the same time, or vice versa, communicating, then I would put a lot of favoritism in this being the truth. But as of right now, you just got one person's word against another, in which I don't know that it's true or not. And to be quite honest with you, it really don't matter to me at this point in time, because I've done told you, and I'll continue to tell you, that as far as I'm concerned, both groups, both parties need to go home and sit down, because you could put them both in power at the same time, and ain't neither party going to be able to wave a wand over the American people's problems and it suddenly go away. It's not going to happen. I don't care if you put both of them in power at the same time. It's not going to happen. Obviously, something has tainted, something has corrupted, something has contaminated our political system whenever we elect people to put them in power, and all they do is get up there and argue and debate and fuss and fight and throw dirty laundry at each other. Something's wrong somewhere whenever you have that much discommunication of people not being able to resolve the American people's problems, because the American people has been driven off into this problem that various politicians has helped to create. I can understand it. Donald Trump wants to get rid of those people, especially when it comes to draining the swamp. But I want people to really recognize what's being said on both parties. Whenever it comes to what's being said, who it's being said from, what is really motivating them towards saying what they're saying. And you have to really listen carefully to the wording in how that they're expressing and explaining what they're saying to the people. We are the people. It's up to us to engage in whether or not we put trust in this one or that one. But how many times has the American people put trust in various politicians, and they turned right around and broke their own promises to their own people? Now that's bad. I don't think you can get much any worse than that. It's one thing if you break your promises to another country. If you promise them that you're going to bring all kinds of this or that, or you're going to do this or that, and then you break that promise, well, that's bad enough. That's horrible. But to break your own promises to your own people, it's hypocrisy. And it's hypocrisy, I believe, on both parties. And because of it, neither one of them are worthy of my vote.
About who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within, like judges.
Now, am I the enemy from within in the eyes of Donald J. Trump because I spoke up about who actually won the last presidential election? I ain't never heard him get on TV and slander my name. And I'm just using myself as an example. I could probably go down the list of about 1,000 different people that I know has either been disruptive or spoke negatively about Donald J. Trump. And to this day, I still don't hear Donald J. Trump mentioning none of their names. So I think this is being taken out of context, not a little but a lot, whenever it comes to her basically putting words in Donald J. Trump's mouth that this is what he said, this was his intent, this is what he's going to do, and this is how he's going to do it. And this is who he's going to do it to. And now she's put everybody into that arena, and I guarantee you Donald Trump does not see everybody as them being his enemy, even those who are either not sure of which way to vote or those that have done already express themselves that they're not going to vote for Donald J. Trump. I'm pretty sure he don't see everybody pertaining to the United States citizens and being his enemy. I may be wrong. I may be wrong about that. But I really ain't swallowing this sack of goods here.
Like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials. It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of...
Which is no doubt awful. Awful, awful, awful. It's horrifying to think that somebody would do something like that. But at the same token, you got to look what Hamas has done. You got to look what President Putin has done recently. You got to look at other wars and what various people have done, including ourselves. Including ourselves. White man speaking with forked tongue towards talking about peace, but then going to war with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Our politicians has done this. They really have. They have dug in a hole, not just for themselves, but for us. And they're the ones that are actually sitting on easy street because they're the ones that fed their own pockets and wound up with hundreds of millions of dollars to share and to show for. We didn't get in this trouble overnight. Odds are we're not going to get out of this trouble overnight. So in this election, it is essential in what you do. And I refuse to demonstrate that in making recommendations or whatever, because I feel like that my position is a position of God's position. God has called me into the arena, basically the same thing as a disciple or an apostle or a teacher or an instructor on spiritual matters. Jesus himself said, render unto Caesar the things that be Caesar's, which is basically your political parties, your taxpayers, your people that's above you, your judges, and your people that can give out orders to basically have you apprehended or even hurt. Do it on a respectful frame of mind to render unto Caesar the things that be Caesar's and render unto God the things that be God's. In my particular story, my particular case, going back into 1989, whenever Homeland Security decided that they was going to intervene in a ministry that they never should have intervened in, it was Caesar. It was the political parties of America and the Western world that attacked that ministry for no sensible good reason. So, did I violate Caesar? Or did Caesar violate Dennis, the founder of the Windmill Ministries? I'll let you figure that out. I'll let you figure that out. But in the meantime, because I am a historical figure, I believe, I think it would be unfair for both sides. For both sides, if I explicitly said you must vote this way or that way, because even Billy Graham, whenever he was living, wanted to stay clear of political affairs because he knew his role or his position that he held as a spiritual influencer, not a political influencer, but a spiritual influencer, and because of that, he restrained himself from a lot of political affairs. And I don't blame him at all. I don't blame him at all.
Of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is. From the people who know him best. From the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room. And it is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascists, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas. Donald Trump.
I do want to say this. If those things, what she's emphasizing upon, put them in the same category as them being right. Let's say, just say hypothetically that she's correct. If she's hypothetically correct about what she's saying, I agree. I agree. This is bad. This cannot be good based upon our Constitution. But at the same time, I can understand if Donald Trump was leaning towards thinking those things because of a government that has run itself in the ground, of us being $35 trillion and letting every Tom, Dick, and Harry come over here and taking better care of them than they do their own citizens. Maybe it's time that somebody did put their foot down pertaining to the corruption from within. And whenever Donald Trump talks about the corruption from within, trust me, I know exactly what he's talking about, and I think many other politicians and preachers do too, in regards towards those that need to be out of the positions that they're in, either voluntarily or forcefully. Forcefully as in doing it legally, but get them out of there. Vote them out of there. Push them out of there. Force them out of there. Whatever. Because they're the ones that has put us where we are today, towards our government taking better care of other countries and other people in other countries than we take care of ourselves, than they take care of their own citizens. That's not good. I can understand if Donald Trump was to have said these things, why he would have said them. Don't agree if he did say them. I don't agree with the fact that if he did say them, I don't agree with that. Especially using Hitler as an example of people that's going to be loyal. But the fact of the matter is, this thing is way off key, folks. You don't have to be an Einstein or a brain surgeon to figure this one out. This government is totally out of control right now, to the degree that I guarantee you other countrymen in other countries are sitting back laughing and hee-hawing about the American government and the American affairs. They're laughing because somebody gave the farm away. And they just didn't give the farm away all at once. It was little pieces here, little pieces there, little pieces here. You know, it's kind of like whenever you hear me say something about the little fox. It's the little fox that can spoil the vineyard, because it's the little fox that can get in between the real close quarters, and he nibbles here and he nibbles there. And the next thing you know, he's done ruined the whole grape vineyard. It's all gone. Why? Because there was enough little gnaws and paws to the degree that it spoiled the whole thing. To where if it would have been the bigger fox, he wouldn't have been able to have gotten in those close quarters, and plus you'd have been able to see that bigger fox coming into your vineyard that you could have run out from within. That's what Donald Trump's talking about, from within. So there's no arguing the fact that the swamp needs draining. Now, whether or not I would have used Adolf Hitler, I don't think I know that I would have. I know that I wouldn't have, because as far as I'm concerned, he was an antichrist. He was an actual antichrist person. He was not the antichrist, but he was a form of the antichrist toward being an antichrist person, because anybody that's going to attack the godly people that are God's chosen people that we have known this now for the past, I know, 4,000 years or better. Why would have somebody have done that to innocent people? But yet now you can look and see where we have done the same thing. We call it collateral damage. We call it accidental damage. But even over in Israel right now, President Yahoo, he's doing the same thing. He's hurting innocent people. Over there in Russia, he's destroying innocent lives. Anybody that's doing that is disregarding the rules of the Heavenly Father towards thou shalt not kill. The only justification for a person killing another person is under the pretense of defending themselves. Now, if that person that we're talking about that needs dying, need to eradicate them like a vicious animal, need to expose of them, if that person has proven themselves to be an evil demonic person, and they have caused more harm and more hurt, similar towards what I continue to keep talking about pertaining to the great Satan over in Saudi Arabia, that was the head of OPEC, that caused all these other oil companies to raise their prices during COVID, to hit not just the American people but the world in general under the belt, whenever we didn't need to be hit under the belt. Of course, I as an American citizen have seen the oil manufacturer companies do this again and again and again to the American people, probably 4, 5, 6 times. They'll raise the price $1 and then come down 50 cents and persuade us, oh, it wasn't that bad of a deal, wasn't it? Oh, we could have been paying $1, but now we're only paying 50 cents more. But while they're doing this teeter-tottering effect, the retail stores all go up towards trying to keep up with the fluctuation of the oil prices. And then about the time that they stabilize all that, the oil prices will come down that 50 cents. But do we ever see the retail stores going back down to their normal prices? No. And it's a way of raising inflation. And it's a way to profit conglomerates of making more money off the American people. We have seen it and seen it and seen it, and this time they got caught doing it. I'm talking about the mega oil typhoons. I'm talking about the Lucifer over in Saudi Arabia.
Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable.
And in that case, I believe that individual that masterminded all this deserves a death penalty, even at the expense of using my own body to do so. Because in the spirit world, we will shove, we will push, we will run, we will drive these evil demonic spirits off into the very gates of hell.
And in a second term, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions. Those who once tried to stop him from pursuing his worst impulses would no longer be there, and no longer be there to rein him in. So the bottom line is this. We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want?
So the full comments there from the vice president. She, of course, is set to take part in CNN Town Hall tonight in Pennsylvania. CNN Chief National Affairs Correspondent Jeff Zeleny joining me now with a preview more of what we can expect. It will be interesting to see how this figures in, of course, in terms of questions in this town hall. What more are we expecting tonight in terms of this discussion, and who's going to be in the audience?
Erica, it certainly will be. I mean, Vice President Harris has been using former President Donald Trump's own words quite literally at rally after rally, trying to make her case, trying to shake voters' attention a bit or remind them of his chaotic presidency in her view, and this latest reporting about the former president's reported comments on generals that you heard her talking there earlier in Washington. That, of course, really fits into that argument. But in this audience tonight, behind me here, in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia, there will be undecided and persuadable voters. And they really are the sliver of voters that both campaigns are trying to reach in the closing days of this race. So yes, more than 1 million Pennsylvania voters have already cast their ballots early, but certainly many have not. And the Harris campaign, as well as the Trump campaign, believes that people can still be persuaded, not necessarily who to support, but also whether they are going to vote at all. There is exhaustion among voters in the electorate about this very expensive and divisive race. So that is one of the challenges for these campaigns as well, convincing people to actually vote. But she'll be taking questions, and it's really an attempt also to fill in some of the gaps that some voters may have about her. She, of course, is a newer candidate, much newer on the national scene than the former president. So that is one of the challenges hanging over. But you can bet the former president's words will certainly be part of her message. She sort of weaves them into virtually every answer in every campaign speech we've seen her give, Erica.
Yes, I am certainly noticing that myself more and more, especially in these final days of the campaign.
Right.
Also, in some ways, a shift back to what we were hearing from President Biden when he was the candidate, these threats, these warnings of what a second Trump presidency would mean. It's also fascinating, Jeff, I think that we're at this point where there are still a number of Americans, a number of voters who say, I don't know enough about Kamala Harris.
It is interesting. I mean, you would think that certainly if you live in a battleground state, there are so many, tens of millions of dollars worth in advertising for and against. But, she did not have the ability, even though she was vice president. She ran for that during the pandemic, so she was not out as much over the last 3.5 years in office. She has been traveling the country, but she still is seen as someone who is newer. So this is something that will fill in some of the gaps. We were with her earlier this week in Michigan, and you do run into voters who want to hear more from her, who are not quite ready to sign on the dotted line, if you will. But we're also learning, Erica, that she will be giving a speech next Tuesday night, a week before Election Day, on the National Mall in Washington. Certainly a high-profile speech to give her closing argument to America before they finally vote here. So trying to fill in some of those gaps and also trying to keep disqualifying Donald Trump. The question is, his supporters, she knows, are locked in. The question is, are hers?
Yeah, it's a great question. We will be watching for that result to come. Jeff Zeleny, appreciate it, my friend. Thank you. Well, on the heels of these comments from some former...
Good luck to all of us. Good luck to all of us, and shalom.